Through storytelling, I use the narrative of a settler descendant, myself, to see, understand, and reconcile the impact of white history on the First Nations people of Australia. It is not the telling of an Aboriginal story, but a re-examination of my own past and the illusionary white history that has gradually been revealed. This made me question my place and my connection to country. I was born here, my mother was born here, my father and my daughter. How could I not belong? I began by researching 100 years of my family's history from our arrival in Quarrading in Western Australia in 1907 to the birth of my mother in 1932. As one of the first settler families to arrive in the wheat belt, we were given land while the Noongar Ballardong people were persecuted and driven out. My approach was to firstly examine my family history in relationship to politics, community attitudes and the laws at the time, an internal lens, and secondly, to explore connection to place through the Australian landscape, an external lens. During my residency at the Fremantle Arts Centre, the project took me on a very personal and deeply emotional journey of grief, empathy and understanding through loss. Within weeks of arriving in Fremantle, my mother, my uncle and my uncle's son, my cousin, all passed away within 1 month of each other. Then I found out my brother was battling cancer. My universe became grief and loss, and I spent days immersed in a tunnel of chaotic emotions. I began collecting materials around my brother's home in Wundowie and made brushes using a much-loved tablecloth of my mother's for the binding. As I made the brushes and explored the marks each of them made, I was able to be still with my loss and grief. It became my emotional and creative outlet. A wall of memory and loss emerged. I reflected on the importance of being with family at the end of life and how we had devastated families, country and culture of the Noongar people and prevented this one last irreplaceable moment of being with family. As my wall grew, it became clear each of the objects I selected had a dual meaning. My brother's home was lovingly built over many years, made entirely from bricks produced at the family brickyard in Narrogin. Initially, the brick was chosen to represent the connection to home, and then, when he was forced to sell due to his illness, the sadness of its sudden loss. This deeply felt loss was rooted in his connection to family, lineage, and place. My creative processes in Fremantle largely moved away from the use of clay, exploring expression through mark-making, sound, writing, and storytelling. My exploration into sound continues through a collaboration with composer and sound artist MJ Callaghan. We're currently seeking permission to record in the wheat silos in Goomelling. I spent 2 months in Martua, where I explored connection to place through the Australian landscape. The region is known as the spiritual heart of Australia. Travelling from Queensland to the Northern Territory, I passed through 16 Aboriginal nations, as detailed on the IAC map. Over the 2 years of the project, I passed through 57 nations, driving over 45,000 kilometres across the country. There are 390 Aboriginal nations listed on the map. I found the landscape to be like no other. The visual and sensual immensity of the land, the colours, the rock formations, the ecosystems, the plants, animals, the visible timeline of millions of years. It was more than connection. How do you articulate this vast, vibrant energy rising from the earth? How do you reconcile it with sacred sites being destroyed, built on, or simply ignored? I'm now in the studio experimenting and making new work for the exhibition. The number of laws we've created to govern First Nations people that have benefited settlers is overwhelming and heartbreaking. The work will draw on my research and present stories that provide a deeper understanding of our laws and how they have entrenched racism in Australia.